Well, first of all, thank you for coming. This is especially for you, not for your husband. This is just
thank you for having me here.
Mm-hmm. For sure. Okay, so we're gonna frame the questions kind of as far as, you know, like your childhood, then young adulthood, and just like things that we're personally curious about, I guess.
Sure.
Yeah, okay, so do you want to start?
Okay, sure. So you say you're from Taiwan, and so first of all, we just like to know, what was your childhood in Taiwan like?
I think my childhood in Taiwan is quite typical of children post-World War II, I think, in Taiwan. I was born in 1965. So Taiwan from 1965 to 1985 were, I think it was a special period for the population there in terms of rapid economic growth and also the development of democracy, or solidification of a democracy, I should say that. As you probably know, being from Asian study, that the Chinese government, the Chiang Kai-shek government, went to Taiwan in 1949. So around the 50s and 60s, Taiwan was under pretty much one ruler rule, I guess. Or this is considered military martial law. So there was very little freedom, and a lot of scholars and government elites, successful business people, fled mainland China, or fled the communist government and fled to Taiwan. So, brought in a lot of energy to Taiwan. And I'm the second generation of that, I guess, in that my parents actually were born in Taiwan, but they had to compete with a lot of much smarter and better educated students, young people that fled China and came to Taiwan. So to them, it was a challenge, and also it was quite a exciting experience. So there's a lot of marriage, or Romeo and Juliet, you may say that. There were Taiwanese families do not like the mainlanders, and the mainlanders do not like Taiwanese, and vice versa. And I am the product of their romance, I suppose, in that my generation, born in the 60s, we were the first Taiwanese that sort of embraced both China and Taiwan. I do not speak any Japanese because, by the time I was born, Taiwan was not under Japanese rule. I speak perfect Mandarin. I don't have any Taiwanese accent because all the teachers at the time, had really good or good education background from China, so that they didn't have to learn Mandarin a week before they teach their kids Mandarin. So that is the background that I have. A first generation of Taiwanese that sort of consider themselves Chinese. At the same time, by the time they're 80s, Taiwan become a real democracy, or they have the real government that kind of allowed a second political party to form and to have a conversation and to have a free election. And then there was a set of the Taiwanese people who kind of want to say, pro-Taiwan independence. So a lot of those people are my age. So you see, I belong to a very interesting generation. Like the new president candidate in Taiwan were pretty much my age, and that kind of freedom was never dreamed of my in my parents' generation. So I think that I grew up in Taiwan in a very interesting time. By the time I came, there are a lot of people of my parents' generation, meaning in the 60s, they came to the United States. But those were the rich elite people who had a college education, and parents can afford to send them to America for the university with or without scholarship. Even if they have scholarship, a lot of families couldn't send their kids to America because they couldn't afford the airline tickets, or transportation, or the lodging. So there were a set of my parents' generation of Chinese that came to the United States via Taiwan. They stayed there for a couple of years. They came here. They have a total set of experience when they first came here. I think that being a Chinese in America in the 60s and 70s were quite different from the Asian or Asian American like me who moved to the United States in the 1980s. So you see there's the little, like a puzzle. My experience of coming to America is totally different from my uncle's experience who came to the United States in the 70s.
Interesting.
So
does that help you?
Definitely.
Okay.
Going back to, the 60s when a lot of the mainlanders came to Taiwan, was there conflict between...
Absolutely. There are conflicts at many levels. In the government level, for sure. Okay. There are violence as well, and but not to the extent of the kind of violence you've seen in mainland China. But still, it was quite traumatic for the Taiwanese people, because I think that a lot of them have this romantic idea of we're finally coming back to our motherland, or our we're no longer a colony of another country, another race, or that sort of thing. And unfortunately, China at the time was going through a tremendous turmoil, post-World War II, poverty, corruption, and you name it, violence. And so Chiang Kai-shek government lost China for good reason, and mainly corruption. So when their government came to Taiwan, unfortunately, the first wave that came to Taiwan were not exactly the elite or the organized retreat. So they had kind of shattered a lot of the romantic expectations of the Taiwanese elite. It's basically, if you have a bunch of, how should I say this, refugee, that disorganized refugee that came in here and they were just basically robbing everything or stealing everything they can. It's not exactly a representation of a good government, even though the Chiang Kai-shek government, did try to build Taiwan to a certain degree, but I think the mistake was made already at the time. So for the educated Taiwanese, there's like, these are the people, these are the people coming and govern us. So there, was probably a lot of unhappiness as well. And then you have all this, I hate to say this picture, you have all this very young college students who have traveled with the government, either as students or as army, or they came with the government to Taiwan. They were in the marriage age. They were in their 20s, and they come to Taiwan. And they're looking for wives and girlfriends, and so and they were quite smart, attractive, and then of course a lot of local Taiwanese girls would like to marry them, and of course that create a lot of conflict, because their parents were probably don't know if these guys are going to stick around, are they going back, or they thought they were going back to China, and then they don't want the daughters to marry somebody who's coming out of nowhere, don't know what their background, and don't know where they're going. And so there were a lot of very, very heartbreaking romantic stories as well. But that that kind of conflicts also create a lot of opportunities. I think that it transformed Taiwan in many ways, and make it very unique.
So what kind of opportunities did that create, do you think?
I would say, for example, you have a bunch of really young, smart people all congregate into a very small island. Taiwan is not big, and they basically, like in terms of like music composition, for example, I recently was going through, the history of Taiwan music. You have all of a sudden all these great composers and performers that come to China, and they brought in all this, energy and talent. And Taiwan provided them a safe haven that they didn't have for years. World War I, World War II, Japanese invasions, and all that. And they some of them migrated to Hong Kong in the movies and films, compositions, and so forth. And then Taiwan, in many ways, provide them a small laboratory. It's very, if you're good, and you put in, it's almost like a college campus. You put a lot of smart people in a small space in a defined time. A lot of good things happen. So I think that kind of, to me, that's probably what Taiwan felt like, young and vibrant, even though it's very chaotic and also. So there was, I think, the tremendous collections of the arts, music, and even the preservation of histories. They were all done in Taiwan. And because of that, it kind of escaped the Cultural Revolutions, a lot of destruction that had happened in China. So right now, that a lot of times when the Chinese scholars, they want to study a certain histories, especially 20th century, or even the 19th, 18th century, they will have to go to Taiwan because Taiwan preserved it.
Right.
Whereas a lot of them were destroyed in China. Of course, and if you go any further than that, if you go into the anthropology or what do you call it, digging out the dinosaurs, all those kind of things, then you have to go to China because Taiwan doesn't have much to dig, and so forth, or the first emperor's tombs, and if you want to go thousands years and beyond, then you have better chance of doing it in China. But if you want to, if you really want to study the more recent Chinese history, then you might have to go to Taiwan.
So it's like a time capsule of sorts.
Yeah, it's funny. It always happens when a group of people sort of get displaced to another place, whether it's voluntarily or involuntarily. For example, I'm going to go back to my uncle who moved to the United States in the 70s, and right now in their 80s, of course. His experience is quite different from mine, and of course, by the time I came here, China started to open. Taiwan has gone through the economic miracles. So they were the factories for a lot of American companies. For a period of time before China turned out to be the world's factory, and so Taiwan had enjoyed quite a bit of economic, how should I say, boom time, and so when I came here, I didn't have to go to restaurants and to wash dishes and work 16 hours a day and then go to school the other 8 hours. I don't have to be a superwoman. My parents were provided housings and tuitions, whereas my uncle's generation, they came here, they probably have a few dollars in their pocket, and then they have to work in the restaurants for a few months, and then they go to school for a period of time, and then they have to work, and so forth. Their experience is quite different from mine, and they may have also experienced the inferiority of Asian American at the time. It's a white man's world, and if you're Asians from a war-torn China and you have no money, this is America. You don't belong to any clubs. By the time that I came here, I think that I didn't have to go through this feeling of like I'm not. I'm inferior. I don't think that I had to go through that. But then, my experience will be quite different from my niece and nephew's experience when they come here right now as a high school and college kids. And I'm like, kids, like, just because your parents have money doesn't mean you come here and then you can buy everybody, because you don't. You probably have the experience of going to China. They are so proud of their economic power right now. They're a little bit to me, it's like the new rich. That people just come to the power right away and then think that they own everything. They don't. My experience is probably more balanced in that I don't have the Asian inferiority complex. At the same time, I didn't come here as with loads of money, and whatever we came here and we achieved through our own hard work, and just like all the other immigrants of America, and in a way I think that speak the truth of American strength. Because by the time I see my younger nephews and nieces, younger generation Chinese friends who are coming here, I say, you know what? You think you're as strong as America? You don't. You look at the way you treat your populations. Look at the way you treat your housekeepers. You don't deserve to call yourself a superpower until you have the kind of strength and resilience that you have in America. Meaning giving everybody equal opportunities and treat everybody equally. And that's something I think it's very important for Asian American to teach the younger Asian American.
Yeah, definitely. Well, okay, so you mentioned like China is kind of this new money kind of situation. I'm just curious as to how you think that's shaped their society.
I think it shaped in their society in a shaky way.
Yeah.
If I can tell you this very funny story. My mom bought a house for my brother and I when we went to university, and it's right off campus. So mainly just so that when they come and visit us, they have a place to stay. And after we graduated, being Asian parents, nobody sell their properties, right? I mean, we're kind of like hoarders. We own this, we just own it forever until we die. And so my parents still own that little house. So they started to rent it out to Asian students. Okay, my mom used to, because they don't live here anymore, so they basically say, okay, there are 6 rooms. I rent out for 5. I'll give 1 room free for a Chinese student, a graduate students usually, and you can stay here for free. But you have to collect all the rents for the other 5 for me, and then keep it in a bank account for me, and I'll come and then do it. Sort of like it's a RA, I guess, or what do you call this, ETA, whatever, situation in a smaller scale. And she never had problems to find somebody who, even though it's a lot of work, you have to knock on the door, have to collect the money, have to go to the bank, and if there's some, leakage, you have to kind of repair it and that sort of thing. But, she never had a problem to find somebody to fill in, because there's always the students who can use the money. Okay, and she's done that for 20 years. And recently my mom said, you know what, I'm going to sell the house. I said, why? I can't deal with it anymore. I said, why? I couldn't find anybody who wants that position. And the students that came here, they used to ask my mom, because my mom, she doesn't always do it for money. She does it because she sort of like, empty nest. She's lonely. So she'll, all the new Chinese students will come here and she'll take them to buy secondhand, like used cars. They'll take them to open the bank account. They always say, because of Atiho, like you can do this for us, and sort of like help him out in a transition time. This is a very funny story. My mom said, they always ask me, what can I get a good second used car, secondhand furniture, and that kind of stuff. Now they say, where can I get a Beamer? Where can I get this and that? And the funny part, not only she could not find a I guess the assistant that she was looking for, she said, well, I got this girl, and then she paid me 6 months rent on the first month. I was like, oh, good. Well, I'm kind of happy. But she said, well, but you need to take me to buy a car. My mom goes, sure, but do you have a driver's license? She said, no, I don't need one. And my mom says, but you don't need a driver's license in America to drive. Oh, I'll do it later when I get a car. And so my mother said, well, okay, you know what? I'll teach you how to drive. I'll tell you to get a driver's license. This is, again, from China. It's very cute. And, but she said, well, but you need to help me to buy a car before you go back to Taiwan. My mom's only here 1 month a year. And so, long story short, so my mom said, okay, she finally got a learner's license, I suppose. And so my mom, took her to buy this Beamer or whatever she wanted. And a month 2 months later, she called my mom. She said, well, I'm moving out. And my mom says, why? I said, well, I just don't like to live here, but I'm moving out. And my mom says, well, but I cannot give you back the money. I said, don't worry, you can keep the money. So, yeah, my mom goes, oh, okay, well, she felt really bad. She says, well, if I can find somebody to rent your room, then I'll give you back the rent. She said, don't worry, it doesn't matter. And so this is a story. This is a true story. My mom told me this. I was laughing so hard. And so she, for some reason, then she came over here, and then she went back to see the house. My mom says, she didn't move out. All her things were there. So she called her and said, you still have your things here. So, you can throw it out for me. And so this is the story. My mom says, but they look okay. And so don't worry about it. You can donate it. And so my mom went through this and donated to my daughter. So with all the little earrings, and a little necklace, and a little, I don't know. My mom says, well, Lara, Grandma has all those things. You can pick. You have first pick, and the rest I'll take it for donation. And my daughter was going through this, and she actually found one Tiffany necklace. And my mom said, this is it. I'm selling this house. I think that these kids are just not worth my time to help anymore. Okay?
Oh my gosh.
This is a true story. But it's very interesting. It's all in a matter of 40 years or less.
That's very interesting. My mom would have had a heart attack.
Trust me, I was like, can I go through that pile too? Except, and nothing fits me, of course. But, it's kind of funny. And how that kind of attitude can really turn people, the American people, against you. I mean, I consider myself American, even though I'm Asian. But it's because you cannot, come in here and think you can throw your money and then get respect. You don't. This is a country that everybody can have opportunity if you can contribute and if you work hard for it. You get it. But just thinking you have money and come here and throw it and buy respect, I don't think so. But somehow when you ask me, what does the new economy do to the Chinese people? And I think that just show you that when you're newly rich, you will create this very obscure, funny set of mentality that doesn't make sense to the rest of us, I think.
No, it's very interesting. Have you seen any kind of similar changes like that in Taiwan, or?
Taiwan is different. Okay, it is very. I have to go back to this. I don't know if this is related or not, but I'm saying this very fast.
It's all related.
Okay. My daughter's applying for high school right now. So, can you imagine? It's like, sort of like a practice for applying college. And so I recently went to a open house at Kincaid, which is a nice private school here in Houston. And the student who gave us a tour, we're just saying, oh, this is a great environment. We are going for the honor code. And, I never lock my locker. And, I lost my iPhone here and there. And then I can always find it. And she was basically saying how wonderful the school is and how safe an environment it is. And I'm kind of happy. I remember I lost my purse as a freshman in college. I left in the ladies' room, and 2 days later I still found it there. I was kind of happy. But this is 30 years ago, of course. And that would never happen in Taiwan 30 years ago. Okay, so that was my first taste of America, the honor code, or the fact that you feel a little safer here, because how should I say? There's certain honor in this society, and it's just very charming. Then a week later, and I went to my daughter's art. My daughter's art teacher had a little function for the parents, and so I went there, and she said, "Oh, I had a picture that was there. It was no, take it back." I said, "Wow, there's a hole in the wall." Like also there was a picture there. It was a beautiful picture and got some kind of award or something, and somebody took it. And so we thought, so I said, oh, so the student must took it home. She said, well, unfortunately, somebody else took it. It was a nice painting, but somebody liked it and took it. And that kind of reminded me of the story that I heard a week prior, which is that you have an iPhone sitting around everywhere. I shouldn't say, you know, public school versus private school. It may not be the case. But to me, it kind of go back to what Taiwan is. Taiwan is westernized. Taiwan has been rich for a while, for 30 years. Taiwan kind of, in many ways, remind me of a place where a bit more Americanized in that, you know, you feel safer. If you lose your briefcase or something, you probably have a much higher chance of finding it in a subway station than you would in China. China is still in this situation where it's a fight for your life and still for survival mentality, and we're all products of our environment. And if you're in that environment, if you don't fight for it, you're never going to get it, right? I'll tell you another story that, again, it kind of illustrates a little bit of what I'm trying to say here. I was interning. I was a freshman in college, and I went back to visit my dad. My dad's a judge, and then a lawyer judge in Taiwan. So he said, "Well, you want to make money in the summer, so you can be, I guess, what do you call this? Intern, I suppose. You can file files in the courthouse for me." So I said, "How do I do that?" She said, "Well, just walk across the street, and there is a window. You wait in line, and then you give that thing, and you get a receipt stamped and bring it back to me." Oh, that's easy. You know, I can make money that way. It's very easy. So I went there. There was sort of a line, but by the time the line goes to the window, it just breaks. So I was there for 45 minutes. I couldn't get the line because there wasn't really a line. It was get it? Whoever has a longer arms, whoever is taller, get in. And the ones like us, who's short, who's from America, who doesn't know how to fight for your life, will just stay there forever. And finally, there was a policeman watched this little, teenager girl was standing there for 45 minutes, and like eyes were popping out, like mad at all those people. Finally, he just opened a line for me so I can get my case filed. That's 1983. All right. So now I go back to Taiwan. Not only there's a line, there is a line there's an honorary line. Like if you go away, go to the bathroom, come back, people say, this is your space. Okay? If you go to the subway, there is a line for women and children. No guys will ever go there. There are the blue chairs in the subway that says pregnant woman. Those handicap chair. Even if it's packed, nobody would sit. Actually I thought, well, that's a little bit dumb. This is too extreme, okay? I'm going to sit until somebody needs it. Like, right? In America, you're allowed to sit in the handicap seats until somebody needs to use it. I mean, come on, common sense. But in Taiwan, they're going so extreme. Those 6 seats were empty. Okay, this is a matter of 30 years. It's doable. It's doable if you set your mind to it. I don't know if China can achieve that in 30 years. If China even want to achieve that, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
So you talked about like your uncle coming here, and then you come here and like your niece and nephew. So is it a popular kind of like life transition for Taiwanese to come to America? Was it something like a popular thing?
Like my uncle came to the United States. He has a one-way ticket. All right. So basically, like you either you swim, you die. There's nothing for you to go back. I mean, you get your PhD and you can come back, but before that, forget it. All right. So, and a lot of them came here and then find jobs here and stay here. The ones who went back to Taiwan, people started, older relatives said, "Oh, so you cannot make a living in America, huh? Like you're not good enough, huh? All right. I mean, you cannot survive in the real world, where you came back." My generation is a bit different. We came here because my parents thought, oh man, the competition is too much. I'm not so sure if my kids can make it there. And we have the money, so maybe we'll take a shortcut. All parents do shortcuts. We do shortcuts, okay. More so for maybe they want their kids to have an easier time getting a better education. In my generation, by the time I finished, I'm an MD, so I did my residency here and that. But my other friends who get PhDs, and when they started to look for jobs, it was in the mid '90s. Taiwan was flooded with money and lots of opportunities. So a lot of my friends, over half of my friends, actually went back to Taiwan, and they have very good jobs. So my generation going back to Taiwan is like, oh, you're smart. You know where the money is. Like, nobody would say, oh, you cannot make a living in America. I mean, it's totally different. And my daughter's generation, they come here. They don't want to come here. They were like, why do I need to go to America? I can just, you come back and you did not necessarily get a better job. I don't want to go there and live by myself, and I don't want to learn the second language. I mean, in other words, they're happy. Life is easy, okay? Nobody's, pushing them in the line. You don't have to fight for your life. So in a way, my mom actually felt like if there is a difference between China and Taiwan is that the younger kids in Taiwan are so pampered that they might lose the competitive edge to China, because they are still in that sort of like, a very small pond with 1,000 goldfish in there, a koi. They all try to get a bite of food. They're worried that Taiwanese kids are going to lose it because of that. So, and if you're in Rice, you will see there are less students, foreign students from Taiwan, and then more from mainland China.
So do you think there is definitely a competition between China and Taiwan right now?
Again, this kind of competition, you can have a government to government level, or you can have individual level, or corporate level. Okay, that's not talking about the government, because it's not. I don't care. I don't know. And corporate level, maybe not. A lot of the Taiwanese company, they actually set up factories in China and vice versa. A lot of early investment or Taiwanese money. So that is a little murky, but they don't. It's not very transparent anyway. Individually, I would say that there are over 600,000 Taiwanese living in Shanghai city alone. I mean, it's like in the proxy city. So the interchange is quite extensive. It's not so much of my generation. I guess my generation, a little younger, they're more likely to go to China for the opportunity, because a lot of opportunities have gone from Taiwan to China because, say, Merck, even GM, you name it, the big American companies, they set up in China instead of in Taiwan, so that the jobs, the high-paid jobs, the better jobs are in China. So a lot of Taiwanese kids or young, I should say kids, I'm not a kid anymore, but the Taiwanese will work in mainland China. I think that there are a lot of how should I say that? There are a lot of Chinese guys want to marry Taiwanese women because they think they're nicer in terms of like they're just more relaxed and more westernized, and perhaps really just more laid back.
That's interesting. So then, how does that shape the dating? Like, what is the dating culture like in Taiwan?
And how is it different from America? What do you say?
I don't think there's any difference in Taiwan and America, other than the fact that I think it may be. This is another interesting thing. Taiwan is really westernized, but then you have the people like my uncle who came here in the 60s and 70s. They're like they're a time capsule of their own. They keep their kids, like tightly controlled. They're not allowed to date any Caucasians, and they have to learn Chinese as a first language. And they're actually celebrating Chinese New Year every year, like my cousin, which is in the 40s and 30s and 40s, our age, they rebel like hell. You know, like what the hell is this? You know, I'm American. I'm who speaks Chinese? Seriously, why do I have to learn this? And so they all marry non-Chinese. I'm going to tell you, this is rebellious as hell. You know. And my uncle was like, I'm not going to your wedding, I'm not going to your wedding, I'm not, you know, it's really ridiculous. And I'm kind of okay. I told my daughter, you know, you can date anybody, you know, just date girls. I mean, don't date girls, date boys, and don't date aliens, okay? If there are aliens around, you know, I don't know what planet you're going to, but you get a picture. So, you know, I'm more laid back, and my view is probably more similar to the contemporary Taiwanese, but I want my daughter to still sort of like, don't go too wild. You know, you're allowed to date, but you have to bring your boyfriend home, and don't date anybody that you're embarrassed to show your, and don't do this like one night stand. You know, you get a picture. Whereas in Taiwan, they're going to the extreme, in that they're things that are more westernized. So they don't have an idea of that the kind of westernized society is not represented fairly in a Hollywood pictures. Get it? So in other words, they're seeing all this very strange behavior in the movies, and they imitate it and thinking that's American, and it's very, very different from what the true American. So when I bring my daughter back to Taiwan, you know, then there is again there's discrepancy. But I think that in many ways, I think my daughter is more representative of what true American is than what the Asian countries' perception of what American is. Mm. So that there is a difference. And in terms of, I'll tell you this very funny story, fashion. In America, yeah, you have this fashion, you know, you have the greatest fashion talents, no kidding, you know, look at New York, right, Fashion Week. But most people don't wear funny things. We wear functional things. So when we go back to Taiwan, then people would say, oh, they're from America, because they look so dull. Their clothes is so ugly. Get it? It's so, for us, it's like, why you wear so weird? You know, you don't look right. But again, that's because, again, their idea of a Western country is purely from internet and purely from movies and TVs, and so it's very strange.
It's really interesting. I mean, we didn't have any questions on the fashion aspect, but that's really interesting, actually. I would have never thought of that, that kind of influence.
Yeah, I can tell you this. If I go to Shanghai, you know, I will be the least dressed pedestrian on Pudong, okay? And I would see this beautiful woman and dressed just beautifully, and I would just think, oh, she must be from New York or Paris. And then until they open their mouth, I say, oh, you're from here.
Shanghai news.
You never left this country. You know, yeah.
That is really interesting.
Yeah, but it seemed like a lot of, I mean, Taiwanese teenagers, they still really like, for example, Hollister and Abercrombie. Like, for example, my cousins would be like, can you bring me back some, like, Hollister and Abercrombie? So why are they still, like, so obsessed with, do they think that is, like, representative of Western fashion?
Again, remember I said that when you're not westernized enough, you won't be westernized enough, right? Mm-hmm. When you are, when you're living in a Western country for years, you want to retain your heritage. So for them, that's their way of showing that the worldliness is having all this brand name, fashion statement, I guess, in a way. For us, probably not so. Well, I guess we have a foreign address, so we don't need to wear Abercrombie or whatever, you know. So I don't know.
Interesting. So, does your daughter have a strong sense of like her Taiwanese-ness? within
Oh, it was a
America?
very
Like,
funny
how does
story.
that-
My daughter was born in New York City, and we moved here in '08. And so about a month ago, one summer ago, she goes, "Oh, I'm a Texan now." I said, "What do you mean?" "What? I have been in Texas one extra day than I've been in New York. So I'm no longer a New Yorker. I'm a Texan." I was like, "Wow, seriously?" You know, like I said, I think you're more, Laura. Come on, I think you're Taiwanese American. Come on, you know, like she said. "Well, I'm not Taiwanese." I said, "Well, but your parents are from Taiwan." I'm not Taiwanese. Like, no, I'm not Taiwanese. I was not born there, and I never lived there, so I'm not Taiwanese. I said, "Well, fair enough, but your parents are from there." And then she goes, "Well, but Daddy's mom is from China, and Daddy's dad is from China, but he didn't call himself Chinese. He called himself Taiwanese. What's wrong with that? So therefore, I'm Texan." I said, "Well, the logic kind of makes sense because my husband always identified himself as Taiwanese, even though his parents are from mainland China. So I don't see any reason why my daughter couldn't, you know, identify herself as Texans. Then I guess even New Yorkers or Chinese American and so forth." And I was telling my husband, "You know what? That's the strength of America. You know, you can be anybody you want to be. You know, if you identify yourself as Texans, then you can be Texans. Nobody's going to say no. Whereas in Asian countries, maybe not. You know, I know Chinese who live in Japan for 50, 60 years and marry a Japanese, and they're not allowed to be called Japanese citizens. They don't have the citizenship and stuff like that. So that to me is not an open society. Whereas I think American is, you know, immigrant society. So you want to be a Texan, you can be a Texan.
Oh, sorry.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
I
does
think
that
that's
answer
very
your
true.
question?
Yeah.
Okay.
So what was the biggest culture shock for you coming to America?
What is the biggest culture shock? I was 17. Okay. So I have to think. It's a while ago. I was 17 years old. The biggest shock, you're going to think this is funny. I think the biggest shock I have was that the fact that you can change your major in college. In other words, or you can even change job. To me, that's a culture shock, or that you can actually drive. Does it make sense to you? I think in Taiwan, in those years, you basically had to decide if you're going to be a science major or a humanity major by the time you're 15. But basically, sophomore year in high school, and you differentiate very early. If you want to change your major in college, you probably will have to be held back 1 year, and I think most parents would not allow you to do that because they would think that you're a failure or that they don't want to pay extra year of tuition, or most of them cannot. I remember coming here, applying for college, and they said, "What do just put any major down, but you can change it, next month if you want to." I said, "Huh? What? I mean, I don't have to." As a matter of fact, they said, "Oh, you don't have to put out your majors." What? Kidding me? Seriously? Can you go to college without a major? That was a big culture shock. And I think the second culture shock I have was like, I'm going to say this, but it's going to sound very, very stupid. Is that there's there's this divorce. Like your mom and dad divorce, and then your mom and dad marry somebody else, and then so you have a sister and brother who's only a half sister and brother, and so to me that was a culture shock too. I say, well, I've never heard of like you have a same family with different sets of siblings or step sisters, and you eat in the same table. Like nobody will kill each other. In other words, that kind of represent in many ways is a freedom for women. I didn't realize that at the time. Because even in Asia, if a woman is divorced, either by choice or being divorced by her husband, she was going to have a very hard time to find another marriage, especially having kids. So it wasn't an equal society in Taiwan at the time. Okay, a divorce is unheard of. Men have second families probably, but illegally. But no woman will voluntarily divorce a husband unless he's in jail or he was in jail. And therefore, there is certain security of being married, whether you're happy or not. When I first came here, realized, the women were so proud. Oh, this is my husband. This is my stepdaughter and stepson. And I was like, you tolerate that? You can have that? And that's a big culture shock for me, too, as a 17-year-old. Knowing that, there's a lot of unhappily married uncles and aunts who stay in the marriage because, for your children's sake, and somebody who's so unfortunate have a step brother or sister, oh, something wrong with her, she's so sad, and none of that in America. And now as I'm a little older, I realized that there was really a freedom, I think for women.
That's really interesting. Well, I guess since we're talking about marriage, how did you meet your husband?
The funny story is that we both were born in the same city and grew up basically 50 miles or less away from each other in two different cities. I first heard of my husband when I was 14, and he was 19 years old. And he was the hotshot of the violinist. He was world famous at the time, and he went back to Taiwan. He basically, I told my daughter, he was the One Direction of our generation. Every classmates of mine had a crush on him. I didn't have a crush on him because my best friend had a crush on him. So, I had to be supportive.
The loyalty.
And so, she already claimed him first. So I was like, okay, he's yours, but she did drag me to hear his first performance in Taiwan in 1979, I believe. It was really a long time ago. But it wasn't until 1993 when I met him. So it really is, and by then, he went through a bunch of girlfriends, and I graduated from med school, and, we all grown up. None of this, teenage crush things. And he came to Atlanta, Georgia, for a concert, and I was a medical student at Emory University at the time. My best friend, or one of my best friends, was a page turner for the pianist. She was a piano major herself, and I still remember it was October 25th. I remember that day because it really very cute because that was the day. It was today?
Yeah.
Oh my God. Oh yeah, it was today. Oh my gosh. Many years ago.
Cute.
So I remember that it was so vividly. My friend got a very timely flu. She had a fever of 103. Exactly like less than 48 hours prior to the concert. So she couldn't turn the pages. So, and it happened to be a long weekend, like a midterm weekend or something. So all the students were gone except the poor medical students, right? I mean, they're stuck there forever. So I was the only one who was really around, and I was off that day, so I didn't have to take calls. And so I was drafted to turn pages for my husband's pianist because I was so nervous. I play piano, but I don't play that well. And this is not exactly a piano recital. So the pieces were violin pieces. So I was very, very nervous. So I said, you know what, when you rehearse, can I come and so practice? First of all, they probably never heard of anybody page turning need rehearsal. Okay, so I'm the only one who actually had to rehearse page turning. So I did. I went there, and then there was like 2 and 3 hours between the rehearsal in the afternoon and the performance, which is at 7:30 at night. So it was too far to go back home, and there was nothing to do in the concert hall, and they were just sitting in the backstage, and so I was sitting there and looking at the drinks and and, eating the food, and well, the story short. And so finally, you know, this guy was just keep looking at me, and then finally he, you know, it's like, I knew who he was, but I was so nervous. I was like, I'm not talking to him. And also because I thought he was I thought he was married. Because can I imagine a guy who's in the 30s and not married, you know, and being famous? So I kind of assumed he was married. So I was like, okay, I'm staying away. You know, this is my best friend's teenage idol. He's a married man. Like, I just like don't get too close. Yeah. But then he was bored, and so he was talking, you know, and we had, you know, a few talk, and you know, he asked me what I was doing. So I was a medical student and everything, and then the pianist. So you know, it was like 3 people, not just 2. So we were, you know, having a conversation, you know, relaxed, you know, conversation, and then the concert came, and there were a lot of my friends in the audience. I had a ticket, all right. I mean, I was supposed to be in the audience. And I met, and I knew a lot of doctors who were sitting in the audience. I guess from a doctor's orchestra. There were quite a few of them. They were kind of amateur musicians themselves, and so I knew a few of professors there as well. And so there was a reception after the concert, and I mean, long story short, so he probably, you know, asked around like, who's this girl? I mean, she doesn't have a boyfriend. And so he found out I was single and available, so he decided he wanted to ask me out. But this is a very funny story. So I was ready to go home, and one of the professors was hosting a dinner, and he was like, "Oh no, you're invited. You're one of the performers." I said, "I wasn't a performer. I was a page turner." Oh my God, what is this? And they said, "No, but you're invited." I was like, "But it's 10:30 at night. I have class tomorrow morning at 8. Oh no, this is, you know, won't take long." And so because of that, I was the last one to arrive at dinner. And there were dinner about 20, a long table, and there were 3 seats left. It's a long table right in the middle, this, and one at the sort of the end. And so I kind of figured I'm going to take the one at the end, because this is for the pianist and the violinist, right? I mean, seriously. So I was sitting there, and the pianist would just basically sit there and say, "Oh, this is my seat." I was like, "Huh? You guys, you know, yours is, that's my seat." And so I had no choice. So I was sitting right across the table from my husband, or to be. And that was the very first day we met. And this is a true story. It was 10:30. I mean, seriously, I wasn't hungry. And there was a Chinese food come in, and you know, and he kept giving me food, he keep feeding me food. I'm from a middle class family. We do not leave food in our plate. I mean, that's a big no-no. If you leave a grain of rice on your bowl, you're gonna wash dishes for like 2 weeks, right? So this guy kept giving me food. I have to eat it because it's just the way I am. And so I ate so much, I was just like about to get sick. And somehow he got a hold of my phone number, and he called me that night. And of course, you know, he called me, and I was like, what? I think that's the way he said, if I quote it correctly, Doctor, my head hurt. I think it's probably a quote from the Oz, right? Wizard of Oz. I think one of those. And of course, I have no sense of humor. I said, "Oh, you have meningitis. You know, hang up." You know. And of course, that was the beginning of. Then we met a month later. You know, I don't know. He kept calling me, so I finally said, "Okay, you know, maybe you're serious." And but that's the day we met, and that's the day I diagnosed him with a meningitis. And that's the day he decided he wanted to marry me, because he said that I've never seen a woman eat so much. I just cannot date anybody who only eats salad and is constantly on diet. And I was like, so you marry me because I eat a lot, I have good appetite. Yeah.
Oh my God.
But that's besides. I think that the reason why we were married was because we have a similar background. We both left Taiwan as a teenager. We both sort of, came to America and make our own, reinvented ourselves. He had to do it in a even harder, under much harder circumstance. His father died when he was 11. So, and being a musician in Taiwan, there's no music school. So he had to leave the country. So he went to Australia when he was 11 and came to the United States, New York City, at the age of 15, all by himself, without a family. So he really had a tougher time. He every bit of success he basically had earned it in a very early age. I, at the same time, had similar experience. I came here as a 17-year-old. My brother was 14 and 11 or something. My parents didn't speak English, so we basically had to grow up overnight. I was a translator overnight, and my parents didn't drive, so I had to drive them around, and then my brothers around. So, we kind of had to all of a sudden become an adult in a very young age. Which is the kind of experience that, as I said, my daughter and my niece and nephews may not have because they're so pampered. Like I'm not going to rely on my daughter right now because mommy doesn't speak English or mommy doesn't know how to open an account in a bank. Mommy doesn't know how to drive. That kind of situation will make a young person grow up very fast. And so I can identify with my husband because of my background, similar background and similar experience in America. If I stay in Taiwan, I will always be somebody's daughter because my father worked in a hospital he represented the hospital as an attorney. And whenever I go home, I would be so-and-so's daughter, always. Even when I went home as an intern, externship, they didn't call me Dr. So-and-so. They called me so-and-so's daughter, even though I was already AMD. But that's just the way it is. Whereas here, every bit, I don't have any legacy. Every bit of success I had to earn it myself. And that kind of opportunity is golden. I think that kind of opportunity makes a person. And I was very lucky to have that.
Definitely. So how did you decide to become an MD?
Oh, that's actually by elimination. Again, I came here as a senior in high school. Purely on my parents' ignorance, I think. There's such a thing as applying for college. My parents basically say, oh, well, if you can go to college in Taiwan, you probably can go to any college in America. Not, right? And secondly, I didn't speak English. My second language was actually German because I like music. So I wanted to speak the language that Beethoven spoke, right?
The big composers. Yeah.
So English, I have some, but I really didn't speak English that well. So I first came here. That was the first time I heard there was SAT, and so my brother said, well, you have to take SAT. I said, what's that? Oh, that's like the college entrance examination. I said, wait a minute, my parents told me we can move here so I don't have to take the college entrance examination. That was a big deal in Taiwan. It's like, given once a year, you make it or you die kind of thing. So I was like, what do you do? Oh, don't worry, there's only English and math. And if you write your name down, you get 200. That's what my brother told me, the 14-year-old. I said, really? Yeah, and math. Everybody from Taiwan is good at math, so you'll get 800. Really? And so that don't make you 1,000. Yeah, 1,000 is enough to go to No. This is 30 years ago. This is a long time ago, where the 1,600 out of 1,600. So if you make 1,000, that's a minimum requirement for going to a state college. Okay, so my brother basically used to make 1,000, and then we'll deal with that later. Okay, so. I was like, oh, you're just telling me that I'm going there and do all the math correctly and then write down my name in English and put B on everything in English and I can somehow manage? I said, yeah. And so I said, okay. So I did that. What? More or less. I mean, there were a few English I know, okay? I mean, not exactly dumb. After a year, you learn something. but I think most of them really were B, and that's exactly what I did. I think I swear to God, I got 1062. I still remember this. So I got 62 out of the 800 English, I suppose. But then with that, I went to apply college. But I play piano. So I kind of said, oh shoot, like let me see, I can get a piano major first. At least I could go to college, right? So I got a high school diploma, equivalent of the piano high school diploma. So I studied that and I got a scholarship at the University of Georgia in major in piano. So I was happy. Then with the 10 and 62, whatever, the SAT score, then I went to apply for Georgia Tech. And the reason why I applied for Georgia Tech because the tuition was cheaper. And it was a technical school and it's right next door to my house, basically. And my mom says, oh, well, you can stay at home and we don't have to pay you room and board. And my brother goes, all the smart guys go to Georgia Tech. Like, all the smart guys, get it? Like, if you're smart, you go to Georgia Tech. If you're dumb, you go to UGA. That's not the case, but that's what he said from a 14-year-old. All right, so I said, oh, okay. So I applied for Georgia Tech. I went there, and I went to a very, very good high school in Taiwan. So there were a lot of graduate students who also went to that high school. So when I went there, they kind of look at my grades from high school in Taiwan and look at my score and realized I just came here basically 14 months prior to my mission to the university. They said, well, okay, if you take TOEFL, if you can pass that TOEFL thing, we won't count your 262 English. And I have to take the remedial English course if I pass that. So I did that. I did the TOEFL, I did the English. And somehow I managed to stay in a school. But because it was a technology school, and all the smart kids will go to a choice of chemical engineer, electrical engineer, and mechanical engineer, and the rest is like whatever. Okay, aerospace engineer. I don't know. I remember this is a 14-year-old boy's version of what is cool. All right, it has nothing to do with the reality. Okay, and I was 17-year-old. I have absolutely no idea what's going on. So I said, okay. So I majored in chemical engineer because quote unquote that was the toughest one. So I said, let's go for the tough one, right? I think I stayed in the chemical engineer for about a year and a half until I have to, I guess, first of all, I have to pass the engineering course, which I hated it. And then secondly, I was not allowed to wear skirt or high heels when I go to the plant to do some kind of experiment or the field trip. Mm-hmm. And I love my heels. I'm short. So I love my heels. I love my skirt. I was like, I have to ruin my hair with a hot head, and I cannot wear a skirt. So I think engineering is out of the question. So that left me with chemistry. I was like, chemical engineer to chemistry. So I went to chemistry, and then there's organic chemistry. There's physical chemistry. The bottom line is okay. I was like, oh. And chemistry is a little dry on the side for me. I mean, I like it, but also it's a minimum English. So formula, it's easy. By then I kind of more or less realized I'm a people kind of person. I like to talk to people, and then, I wish I would be a lawyer like my dad. Probably argue, my opponent to death, I guess, whatever. But at that time, I thought the best combination for my interest in people and my 2 years of hard work in chemistry would be pre-med. So I, switched to pre-med in the second year, the second semester of second year on college, and somehow managed to graduate and got into med school. I don't know how it happened, but it did. So here we are.
Cool, very cool.
Yeah, I wasn't. It was really by elimination. All the humanity, everything had to do with English is out of the question. So I get it. Not with a SAT of 262, right? No, it's like out. So basically science and engineering, and then it really is just by process of elimination. But I'm happy that I got a really solid education here. And also I think there's so many applications in medicine. I know a lot of people not only good in medicine, but because of the background, they can, we interpreted the life experience differently. We have, contact with patients in different situations, and that kind of, enrich our lives in many other ways also.
Interesting. So how do you think it's been kind of being a minority, I guess not so much now, but in the past in the medical field?
Well, yes, good and scary. Okay, the good part is I remember when I was interviewing, again, this is 1987, okay, interviewing for medical school. One of the interviewer was a cardiologist, and she was one of the earliest graduate from Emory University. Mm-hmm. She was smoking cigarettes. She'd never been married. And she'd take a look at me, it's like, you want to be a doctor? Yeah. Cardiologist, smoking, okay, get it? And I was like, I said, you think you're tough, huh? I said, and I said, you ready for all the sacrifices? I was like, sacrifice? I don't want any boyfriend. Yeah. And that's what, and I was probably there were 110 students in that class. I think there were less than 20 girls at the time. There were one Chinese girl, that was me. There's one Japanese girl, and there were 8 other girls, I guess. And there were some minorities, but not too many. We didn't have any saying of like we have to prove ourselves to be tougher than the men. There's not much support. Like we didn't feel like we can band together and form a girls and still be taken seriously. So, and our role models were like she-men, I guess. I don't know what you call it. That scared the heck out of me. And so none of us feel secure enough. Swear to God, none of us feel secure enough. We're just like, okay, men take calls, we take calls. Men sleep in the room. We sleep in the room. Like, we're not going to ask for a girls' room, right? This is whatever. We just do it. Now that they're 50-50, they're half and half. When I went back to Emory for the 20th anniversary, I realized that there were just as many girls in the medical school class than boys, and girls have so much more support, which is wonderful. But at the same time, it could be scary. I think that the scary part is that it's very funny. The scary part is that you have so many women, and so therefore you have so much more competition. Get it? It's like, for example, if I wanted to take some time off, and the guy would probably going to say, well, she's going to take some time off. What are you going to do with her? Okay, so you shouldn't take time off because she's pregnant. She's having a baby. She shouldn't take time off. Like, what are you going to do, right? But now that if I say, I'm going to take some time off, I know that I'll be replaced. So that's the scary part. Like for you, for example, you probably will feel like you feel like the pressure is not coming from men. The pressure will become from girls.
Yeah, and from yourself.
From yourself.
That is very interesting.
Right?
Yeah, no, it's true. It definitely is true. Okay, let's see. Oh, what's the food like in Taiwan versus America?
Okay. This is very interesting. All right. I think the food capital. There are a few food capitals in the world. Paris, New York, perhaps Tokyo, perhaps, and definitely Hong Kong, Taiwan, Taipei.
Yeah.
All right. These are the food capitals. You cannot have good food in London. Okay. You cannot really have very good food in Los Angeles either. And Houston, you can have a certain good food like Tex-Mex, maybe Vietnamese, but in terms of food capital means you have to have the best of every types of food in the world. Then you become a food capital, and the food capital, not even Shanghai. Okay, not even Beijing. None. They don't. Okay, the true food capital, seriously, Taipei is one of them. Okay, it's amazing. Okay, anything you can think of, it's just there. Italian, forget it. Spanish, French, Indian. They even have Mexican food in Taiwan, and Chinese food, the best Japanese food, and even Hong Kongese, or Cantonese food. They're better in Taiwan than Hong Kong. So the only place I can think that's better than Taiwan is probably Paris and New York. In that they just have more. It's a bigger city. They have more talents there as well, and because of weather. So a certain type of food tastes better in that kind of environment, food or weather. Taiwan is very unique in that, and it took me a long time to realize why Taiwan has such a wonderful food tradition. I think again it has to do with the fact that 1949, all this best cook fled China and then came to Taiwan. The clients, the rich people were there, so they come here and open the restaurants to serve them, and that kind of has started a good tradition. And secondly, most important is that Taiwan is a beautiful green island, and produce comes easy. It's almost like Costa Rica. Usually you put something down, and then 3 months later you have the best food, fruits, vegetables you can imagine. This is how beautiful that is. And so you have extremely fresh food. So the ingredients are fresh, and the tradition is there. Then you just have the wonderful, and then you have the money. You have the clients who has the taste for the type of food. So it's a combination. It's, the chef from mainland China usually come to Taiwan to learn how to cook. And then the best restaurants in Shanghai and Beijing are the chefs from Taiwan. So that just tells you, it's just a tradition. Have that said, sometimes I think the best Chinese food could be found in New York. It just, because not only you have the technique, the Chinese technique, you also are exposed to other cultures. So it's a fusion. So it's not just traditional. If you're talking about traditional way of cooking and fresh food and everything, Taiwan, yeah, great. But if you're looking for some kind of new idea, some kind of a new way of mixing different types of cuisine, types of cooking ingredients together, then I think New York is actually better than Taiwan. Okay. But then I have the best Italian restaurant I have recently. I have it actually in Taiwan. And then I was, my husband and I were just like, couldn't believe how delicious the Italian food was. And so we went to the kitchen and talked to the chef. I said, oh, you must have learned, you must have apprenticed in Europe or something. The guy said, no, my master is from Japan. So it was a Japanese chef who trained a Taiwanese guy who never left Taiwan and made the best Italian food that Jimmy and I had for a long time. Globalization.
Yeah, it made me really hungry too. That sounds awesome.
And I heard that it's not only chefs who come to Taiwan to learn, but even a lot of the customer service. I know Taiwan has really perfected it in a way, and which just I think really adds to why it's such a big thing.
Okay. Taiwan's you call the what do you call those service industry? What do you call this hospitality industry? I guess whatever. All right. Taiwan has a very strong influence and tradition from Japan. Okay, you know how Japanese are very neat and everything and very polite. So Taiwanese have that. Okay, they may not have the service tradition like I would say Thailand or Philippines, because they're really good. You know, they make the best servants in the world. you know, they kind of look before you sit down, your towels in your swimming pool chair, lounge. You know what I'm talking about. There is ingrained in them, and Taiwan may not have that. But what Taiwan has is a professional organization and eyes to detail, and also the very polite, the Japanese way of serving, okay, which is different from, again, the Philippines or Thailand, okay. I think they're even better, but in a very strange way, if you know what I'm talking about. It's sort of like you're the royal, we're the servants. Like Japanese is not. Japanese is more even. Like you servants and service more even. Taiwan has that. Okay. Taiwan has the cooking, the tradition. Taiwan has the perfected the infrastructure of having to make the restaurant clean and efficient, and make the hotel clean and efficient. They have the history of service in a very orderly way. China doesn't have that. Mm-hmm. I can tell you this airplane experience. For example, there's an EVA airline from Taiwan, and there's perhaps Air China from China. Totally different animals. You go to the EVA airline, the stewards, even though they wear the very ugly green, they'll be standing there, and they would do this 90-degree bow like a Japanese woman, very submissive, and makes you. I mean, I'm Americanized. I don't have to have a beautiful woman do a 90-degree bow for me to make me feel better, but I don't mind it. But then, when you sit down, they give you the menu. They would say, would you like to have breakfast or lunch? They'll ask you, and so forth. China Airline, You go in there. First of all, their voice is like octave too high, and then secondly, they treated me like army recruit. It's like, do you want to eat? Like, huh? Like, you don't have to yell at me, right? It's really weird. You have that experience? They're frightening. Don't you feel like you the army recruit, right?
It's very aggressive. It's like, we're serving breakfast now. Like, here's your food. It's like, whoa.
It makes me feel like, oh my gosh, why am I paying this money and sitting here being tortured? Like an electric chair of some sort. So.
So how did you guys move from New York to Texas? So you guys came to Georgia.
I moved to Georgia because my uncle lived in Georgia for many years, and my mom's brother. So when we moved to the United States, and then that was a pretty natural, obvious choice for us. And I met my husband when I was a medical student, actually first year intern in the transition, and then we dated for 2 years, and then after I got married, I moved to New York City. I worked at Cornell Presbyterian Hospital until 2008, and my husband got a professorship here in Rice University. So here we are.
Very cool.
And I still commute, so I still have a position in New York, in Manhattan. My mother-in-law still lives there, so she's over 85, and we want to kind of keep an eye on her. And my husband still teaches at the Juilliard School, so we still are a New Yorker in many ways, in both. That's why it was very cute when my daughter said that she's a Texan. And then we told her that, okay, your parents are still New Yorkers, but you can be Texan, But we're have the best of both worlds.
Very cool.
So where is your favorite place to live?
It's a very funny story. or question. It's just kind of a funny story I'm going to tell you. Is I only have one daughter, and she's about to go to college in 4 years. Okay, preemptive. So I thought, crap, like, what am I going to do? If I don't have to live in Houston, where do I want to live? And it may not be the same as what's your favorite city, right? Is that your question? Like, what was your favorite place to live?
Place to live.
Yeah. I think that would be kind of like, right now would be New York City. In other words, I've lived there, even though I want to say San Francisco, but I've never lived in San Francisco. You see, there's a difference. You can have ideas, San Francisco will be my favorite place to live, but I never lived there. So even if I have lived there, then I might not like it. Okay. I never thought I was going to like New York City. As a matter of fact, when I was applying for medical school, I applied every single school, imagine this, from Maine to Florida, all on the East Coast, skip a few, of course, except New York. Because I went to New York City with my godparents. My godfather graduated from Columbia University, so he was the one in charge of taking me to see the Big Apple. And I still remember my godmother and I were walking, following him, and we're in Times Square, and I saw a huge rat. It's bigger than a rabbit, and it was right in the middle. It was in the 80s, right in the middle, and I was thinking, okay, I'm walking this way, the rat's walking this way. One of us had to move, and I was actually thinking, when is that rat going to move? Because I'm a human, until very, very, very last second, I moved. I just budged. The rat go that way, and so I talked to my godmother. It goes, I think even the rat in New York City can beat me. I'm not so sure if I can survive here. So I skip all the NYU, Albert Einstein, you name it, every hospital and medical school there. It was like, I'm not so sure if I can survive. So I was afraid of New York City, and in 1995 when I first moved to New York City, I worked in New York Hospital. Right now it's called New York Presbyterian Hospital, and affiliated with Cornell. Mm-hmm. And I still remember the first night, I was taking, I had my beeper. I was taking calls, and I was calling, so, this is Dr. Ho. I was Paige, and then I go, what do you want? I was like, I was Paige. Whereas I was like 24 hours prior to that call, I was at Emory University. I was calling, I was dictating, and I turned in my beeper. And so I called, as your service. I said, oh, this is Dr. Ho. This is my last day here. I'm moving to New York City tomorrow. And I had like an hour conversation with the person who I never met, of course, and he was, oh, good luck, I'm excited, we're getting married next month, and this is so wonderful. So my experience of New York, my love for New York is gradual. It's really not the love in the first sight, for sure. I was afraid of it, and then I was intimidated by it when I first moved there. I still remember the first month I was there. There was one day it was raining so hard. I came down my apartment, and I was staying there for like 5 to 10 minutes. I'm trying to get a taxi to go to work, and because it was raining, so there was very few taxis. And then finally there was one taxi here. I was sitting there, and a guy, a 6 feet tall man, rushed right behind me and took the taxi away from me, and gone. You were talking about, I guess, or what is it called? Rat eats rat, kind of word. And I was like, I was so angry, I was shaking. I was late. I was thinking, okay, so even if I weren't a woman, I were here 5 minutes before you did. Like, how can you just do this? I couldn't. I told my husband, as much as I love you, I don't think I can live in New York City. But he said, give it time. But I became a true New Yorker after 9/11. I was working again. My office was about a mile and a half from Ground Zero, and I was actually I was on a subway going to work, and in the middle of it, I still remember there was a primary election day. They would give you flyers. I remember and I'll get this flyer. And also remember, I had a huge textbook with me, and I was kind of happy. I'm always late. I'm always late. And then I was early. I was like, oh, I'm going to go to work early today. I'm not late today. I was very happy. I had a textbook with me, and very happy that day. And then in the subway got stuck for like an hour, 45 minutes. And the subway gets stuck all the time in New York City. No big deal. So I was waiting, no big deal. And then so like 40 minutes I was like, okay, I'm not even early anymore. I'm late, I was getting depressed. And then there was somebody say, there's a lot of police activity above ground. I said, what police activity? They were like, oh, whatever. Oh, there's some airplane flying to a building. That's what they said. And somebody said, oh, not again. Because there was an airplane flew into a hospital building and destroyed one apartment about a year and a half ago. And both pilots died, but nothing happened. I mean, in other words, airplane flying to a building is normal for New York City, okay? So there's airplane flying to the building, and I was like, oh, okay. And then there was no the phone reception there at the time. So okay, now I'm gonna be late. Now I'm gonna be very late. Now people are gonna say, "What happened to the late?" And I said, "Okay, maybe they know that I'm buried alive in the subway." So about an hour later, we started to lose their air condition. The air was starting to get really bad, and then there was a pregnant woman. I still remember this. Sit across the street aisle from me, and she was having an asthma attack, and I happened to have a wheelchair with me because that was the day that I was organized. I have my textbook. I have a sample. I was going to show the medical student how to use. I mean, it was one of those days, and so I said, okay, I'm going to pump everybody. Just open your mouth big, and I only have one. So we were there for another 45 minutes. I was there altogether less than 2 hours. And then by the time I got out in a City Hall area, and I was really not far away from Ground Zero, and there was carved with dust, white dust. It was like a snowstorm just passed. He said the snow is a little gray, and I still remember seeing shoes, like bent-in high heels everywhere, and the footsteps on the top of the dust. It was like a bomb went off, and the air was, how the have you been to high mountains with the snow? It's like a skiing. You know how your voice, the sound wave does not transmit because the air density changed. Yeah, you can't even talk to each other without your voice being cut off. You cannot see that in the news or if you're not there. Because I remember the footprint. I remember the voice, the dust. I can't breathe. I remember, and then I also remember everybody was so disoriented, and I didn't know what happened. Nobody knew what happened. And I went to the
oh no. Oh my goodness, the SD card is full.
Okay, it's okay. You have that.
Okay.
All right. I'll make it short. But I ended up volunteer at the downtown hospital for a whole day, and there was no survivor. Of course, there was nobody survived. Basically, either you made it or you didn't. There was nobody to treat. But there was no panic. Okay. I still remember. It was a downtown hospital. One end was a big window, and the window was always dark because that was really the windows facing the one of the World Trade Center. World Trade Center is so tall and cast such a high shadow. So that window is basically a dead window. It's like you never see sunshine, and all of a sudden there was sunshine in the window, and I remember I was so out of it. I was like, wow, the sunshine, How come I never seen it before? And then I realized something's not right. Why is there sunshine? And then I realized World Trade Center collapsed. That was weird. Nobody knew.
Yeah. That's really ironic too. The day that you see sunshine was like a day of.
Yeah. But what made me become a New Yorker in that day is that I realized, even though under the very, very rough, very coarse exterior, I think there's a steel underneath. all the New Yorkers. Okay, nobody panicked. Okay, we're in the hospital. Nobody panicked. We sent the patients home. We did everything. I was assigned to 10th floor, was a geriatric. I'm a pediatrician. I'm like, what am I doing here? And one patient keeps saying, where am I? Where am I? I was like, I don't know. I have the same question. Where am I? You know. Then I was there, and then finally, after 8 hours, I realized there was nobody to triage, and we're eating the food. Okay, so doctors they say, doctors, you're not needed here. You go home. Like, we want to eat our food. there's no car coming. So I went out. I had to walk from pretty much ground zero all the way to Chinatown, like an hour walk, and good Chinese. I walk around and started to collect all this food. I was like, fried dumplings and all this, meatballs. I was buying all these things because I was thinking, what if I get hungry? What if I have to walk all the way to Upper West Side? It's like 8 miles walk, so I'll be hungry and foods are cheaper here. So I'm starting to collect all this food, and there was 3 vendors selling. So I bought all this food. And as I was walking, by the time I walked to Soho area, there was a bus that was picking up people just randomly because they're already sending the bus to pick up people who get displaced. So I saw this Lincoln Center. I waved my hand and I went there, and there was a bunch of people in the bus, and people said, "You selling your food?" I was like, "No, you can have." I was sharing my medicine in the subway, and now I'm sharing my dumplings and a bus, and I walk home, and there was no riot, there was no panic, and there was a lot of disbelief, there's a lot of sadness, but everything worked. Okay, there's no gridlocks or anything, and not like Washington D.C. My brother actually worked near Pentagon, and he called me. He said, "Are you okay?" I said, "I think I'm okay." "Are you okay?" "Well, they told us to evacuate, so I took my car and went half a block. I sat for 3 hours, 45 minutes. I couldn't get out because all the car was locked. So I kind of figured I can't evacuate because the traffic jams. So instead of waiting another 3 hours, I make a turn, go back to the parking lot, went back to my office." And I just thought, well, we beat you. We have free bus service, okay? So in other words, at that moment, I realized that, underneath all this, the kind of competency and also the togetherness, made me become a New Yorker. So it's very funny. From being scared of the rats in this Times Square to being, got intimidated by the call service lady to actually become a true New Yorker. It took a while, but it's a journey, and I really like. And I'll be, in Houston. Just, it's interesting.
Yeah, that's very cool. Okay, well, I guess, so we're reaching the end of the interview. Thank you so much for your time and stories. They've been really fantastic.
Well, thank you for having me. I hope that'll make up for my husband's absence.
Oh, yeah, that was fantastic. Okay. Is there anything else you want to say?
No. Good luck for your project.
Thank you.
Yeah.